Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast. I am your host, Matthew Pejkovic, and this is episode number 655. Releasing November 11 in the US on Blu-ray, digital, and video on demand is Harley Flanagan, Wired for Chaos, a documentary that delves into the life and music of punk rock hardcore legend Harley Flanagan, featuring never-before-seen archival footage and interviews with the likes of Flea, Henry Rollins, Jocko Willink, and Harley Flanagan himself. Harley Flanagan Wired for Chaos is the ultimate punk rock survival story that is equal parts tragic and inspirational. And joining me to talk about Harley Flanagan Wired for Chaos is the film's director, Rex Miller. Rex, I thank you so very much for your time today.
Great to be here, Matt. I'm a little bit on the move here, but let's do it.
So there's a photo in this movie amongst all the great archival stuff. And it's taken by Marsha Resnick. And there's a photo from the 1987 gig at the Palladium or 1978 gig at the Palladium. You got Andy Warhol, you got Joe Strummer, and in the middle of them, you got a 12-year-old Harley Flanagan. And I think that speaks more than anything if there's just one visual asset you could take about the life that this young man had. Um, Incredibly, though, you were at that gig, right? When did you realize that you and Harley had this shared kind of experience here where he's backstage and you're like in the crowd just having watched Joe Strummer and the boys do their thing?
Yeah, great noticing that. Well done. Yeah, so when I finally met Harley, uh, which was really just at the beginning of this amazing opportunity to make this film, I actually didn't know who he was or what he had done. And it was a suggestion by a friend of mine that does jujitsu at the same place as Harley does
Hmm.
at Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in New York. And he's like, you might want to meet this Harley guy. He's had a fascinating life. And I took my friend's word for it. So I was walking in to have dinner with Harley and his wife, Laura Lee, and I Googled him, and that photo came up, and it just kind of blew my mind. First of all, the photo, I was like, wow, there's a story there. Uh, what 11-year-old does that? And
Hmm.
then when I read the caption that it was taken at the Clash show, and I'm like, holy shit, I was at that show with my mates from school. I was about 16 or so, and we had just discovered the Clash like a month or so before or two, and I had gotten their first album, and we became Clash fans. And then we got to go to the show because people hadn't really heard of the Clash yet, so we got these 10th row tickets. And yeah, I never met Harley until 40 years later or whatever it was. But I was at that show, and I'd say I mingled a lot in that ecosystem that Harley comes out of. But I didn't live in squats. I didn't run away from home. I didn't uh, shave my head or get tattoos, but I was a really big fan of all that music, The Clash, Ramones, Blondie, Talking Heads, and some harder stuff too. So yeah, that's being a photographer, that photo was kind of my entry point to making this film and wanting to know more about Harley.
This movie is just as much to me a New York story as it is, a story about Harley, especially in New York circa late 70s. I think like the time period we're talking about here when Harley comes back from his trip overseas when he's a kid, post Summer of Sam, post the blackouts and things, and also through the 80s as well. Um, I know you were in Queens, right? That's where you kind of grew up and such. What do you remember about the New York back then that people who don't know about any of that stuff, what's kind of like the key kind of memories or the key moments of that time in your life of the New York City back then that is that people need to know now in regards to this documentary?
Yeah, for me, this film is very much an homage to that time and place, the, especially downtown New York, the Lower East Side in the late 70s. Well, what people should know is that it was completely insane down there, especially where Harley lived and was hanging out in the Lower East Side, Avenue A, B, C, places like that. Basically, the cops stopped going there for like 10 years.
Mm.
And it was like probably more crack cocaine was sold in that 1 or 2 square mile area than anywhere in the world. And there were a lot of just burned out buildings. Kind of like the South Bronx is more famous for that. But hey, but there were tons of burned out buildings and crackheads everywhere, and gangs, mostly Puerto Rican street gangs, as is discussed in the film. That's who Harley lived amongst. And I spent a lot of time down there, like at night, going to shows. But even just throughout the rest of the city, it was the type of situation where once you left your house, you just had to be on. You had to be
Mm,
on point because street crime was rampant. There was a famous case of the subway vigilante Bernard Getz, that he
mm,
shot guys that were maybe going to mug him on the subway, and that caused a huge stir. 1977 was a huge year for me, and all New Yorkers, because that's where we had Son of Sam, and two of his shootings happened literally down the street from the tennis club that I used to play at in Forest Hills, Queens. And I was there all the time. And so Son of Sam event in August of 77, when it was at its peak hysteria, the city basically shut down
mm.
because no one would go out because you might get shot by Son of Sam. There was a blackout, the whole city, very famous blackout in July of 77. The Yankees won the World Series. There was a garbage strike where garbage was just piling, 2 stories tall on some streets, and you just never knew what was going to happen next. And you know, the title of this film, Wired for Chaos, that comes from something that Harley said, but it really sums up, the landscape of New York City at that time.
Hi guys, Matt here from Matt's Movie Reviews, letting you know that the Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel has launched channel membership. This provides exclusive videos and other cool stuff as well for all channel members. It's under one tier, one price, and with that one price you get exclusive reviews. For example, I'll be going through the American Film Institute's top 100 movies. So every week I'll do a new review based on that movie list. You can get exclusive reviews based on your requests. Request a movie review and I will review it for you. You'll also get exclusive content for behind the scenes stuff as well. You also get exclusive interviews that I haven't posted yet as part of my podcast, like older interviews with Academy Award winners and other great filmmakers and actors as well, and a bunch of other cool stuff as well. I hope you can all join up, be part of this great experience I have on offer for you. Support indie content creators, support a movie critic like myself who is trying to make it through the content creator space. Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel memberships. Please join and get some great exclusive content. Harley talks about in the film how he has trunks of baggage just from the decades of just the way he lived in his existence. Considering that trunks of baggage and considering that, you are kind of a newcomer to the world of Harley Flanagan and having just met him before starting the movie, how long does it take for him to kind of how long does it take for you to gain his trust? How long does it take for him to kind of open up to you and be willing to talk about the things that he talks about in the movie? Because he's incredibly transparent in the film. And it's clear that there's a lot he wants to get off his shoulders. He wants to open up some of that luggage and then throw some of the stuff out, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. You say it really well. Yeah, it's interesting. The night we met, the three of us went to dinner in New York and had great conversations. And I went back to their place and we stayed up late at night talking. And by the end of our first time together, we had had all these little coincidences of shared backgrounds and some people that Laura Lee, her family, and just all these coincidences. So we kind of agreed, like I like to say, I'm not sure where this is going, but it's going somewhere. So why
Right.
don't we just agree on that? So that's kind of what we did. And then I came back up to New York and we did some shooting. And I'm pretty good at being patient, and one would have had to be doing this because yeah, it took a while for Harley to, be in the right mood when I was also there with a camera. And then as we got into it more, he got to know me. And Harley likes to tell the story that when he saw my film that's on Arthur Ashe, the tennis great, that
Hmm.
was kind of when he started to really trust me. We'd been working together for a bit, but he came and he likes to say, I don't know. He goes, I don't give a fuck about tennis and I don't know anything about Arthur Ashe, but that's a good fucking movie. And if this guy could make a movie about something that I don't know anything about or care about, then all right, then maybe he can do something with my story. But I refer to Harley as the best protagonist I've ever worked with, because at the beginning he took me aside and he said, all right, you're gonna do what you do. I'm not gonna, bother you. I'm not gonna get, in your face or ask to see anything. And I just trust you and you do what you do. And he didn't see the film until it was done. He saw it before it went out, but it was done. And he gave it like the thumbs up. He just had one little factual thing, like to just change this to that. Took like 5 minutes. And yeah, it turned out well. In terms of the relationship, like Harley and Laura Lee are still happy when I call, and that's not always the case. So yeah, he was a great partner and protagonist, but it took time. And it's interesting, a couple of the most transparent and forthcoming parts of the film happened like very much towards the end of the whole filmmaking process. And because, like, as you said, over time, he got more and more transparent and trusting me, and just the walls came down. And at some point in the middle of, filming with him over a few years, he started therapy. So the interviews that we were doing with some people in the film, like he would come to say hello and then stay for a half hour, and then we'd be filming him as well, in conversation with like Michael Imperioli or a couple of the other interviewees. And then those became initial therapy sessions. And then at some point he literally started therapy, and now he's so transparent now that if you get a chance, go see the film when Harley's there, because it's like even better than the film. He just holds court, and he's so comfortable bearing his soul that all you got to do is press play. And it's like the Church of Harley Flanagan, in person in the theater when we have these screenings. So yeah, it's been a process where he just becomes more and more open and wanting to get it out to people. Also, because his story and his pain and his challenges, also because he the response from audience goers and people who are watching online has been so intense, where so many people have been through similar stuff. And when they hear Harley talking about it, drug abuse, sex abuse, violence, they feel comfortable bonding with him and opening up to him. So he's even more sure of the need to open up and share with people, and he has a group. It's not really in the film. There's a couple people in the film, but it's kind of an informal network of other folks that have been dealing with PTSD, and they tend to be like ex-military and ex-gang leaders, or maybe ex UFC fighters, and just musicians, just different people in his sphere. So he's very comfortable kind of helping other people by sharing his story and listening and, giving encouragement. So yeah, it's kind of his mission. It's a mission of his. It's a mission. Yeah. To let other people in on his experience and talk with them, not so much counsel them, but it winds up almost being him counseling them. Yeah.
The Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel is brought to you by TeePublic. TeePublic is the world's largest marketplace for independent creators to sell their work on the highest quality merchandise. With over 1.2 million designs, TeePublic is sure to have something you'll love. On the other hand, you have Harley Flanagan on stage. There's a great I forgot who says this, but someone says that Harley kind of looks like a human pit bull when he's on stage. He's just like up there, he's ferocious, he's got the bass guitar. So on one end of the spectrum we got like this very, kind of like transparent, kind of like retrospective kind of Harley, and then when he gets on stage, it's this transformation, this hulking beast guy with the bass guitar, and he's just thrashing, and 15-year-olds of 15 years, 55 years of just all this angst and anger and everything just coming out on the stage. What is it like to behold that Harley Flanagan, the cro-mags, the punk legend, the hardcore legend that is that everyone knows, and to see it on stage and try to capture that on film? That would have been a really kind of a thrilling, energetic kind of like presence to be in.
Oh, what's it like to be in the church of Harley Flanagan or the living room of Harley Flanagan? Yeah, I mean, anytime you're in the room with Harley, he's the most charismatic one. Uh, yeah, he's just a huge personality and he's a huge ball of energy, whether he's laughing, telling jokes, or being angry about something, or he's playing DJ in the room, just amongst friends. Harley's kind of dominating with his charisma, not just because he's the only one talking, but the guy is just like full of charisma and he's super smart. And I just like listening to him. So as a
Mm,
filmmaker, I just try to get him going a little bit on a subject, and it's always interesting. And the more we got into the filmmaking process, because I talked to him many times, and some of it was planned, like, all right, we're gonna talk about this story, but some of it would just be sitting around, and he'd start talking about music or his mom or whatever. And with on the on the filmmaking side of things, you better be ready because there's no retakes. He bawled me out more than once because I didn't have my shit together like in 5 seconds or something. But I'm kind of used to that, so I was mostly ready. And yeah, you just have to be ready when the magic happens. Uh, I I never had a negative experience with him, so it was always just positive. I always felt like we were getting good, information, good visual, good filmmaking was going on. So yeah, it was just 100% positive and always interesting. And I can also say that one of the hold on, let me just start the car here. I'm going to drive a little bit. Uh, So, Lord, can you hear me still, Matt?
yes.
Okay. Uh,
My friend's chasing me.
don't talk. You sure?
That's not sad.
All right, let me know. Okay. I, I may not have to, hold on. I want to take you off of the car speaker here. I think it's going to be better if I can just keep you on a phone
Yep.
speaker. Yeah. Okay. Um, oh, so one of the very important facets of this film was Laura Lee Flanagan's involvement, and she wound up being a producer. But the producer, like, that credit gets thrown around a lot. Oh, let's give the guy's wife a producer credit, but she was like 100% functioning producing producer. For instance, we interviewed over 50 people and I didn't know any of them. So she like arranged all of them, and there was transportation, and we were flying sometimes to a place, and she did all of that, plus just a lot more, just especially at the end when it was a lot of logistical stuff on the back end of production. Also, she wasn't in the edit room ever, but she was a constant presence that I would talk to make sure we were getting it right. Because there's a lot to his life and his career and family and kids and parents. There's a lot of moving parts to the story. So she was incredibly helpful in getting it right. And then also, Harley had kept all of like photographs, magazines, all this stuff of his whole life, but Laura Lee was the one who had organized stuff really, really well, like digitally. So she was incredibly helpful. So yeah, I didn't do this by myself. And of course, the editors, we had four different editors, one editor was on it for the last like 10 months. Elizabeth Haviland James, who's also a filmmaker, and I've worked with her before. She's a brilliant editor, and she like sussed out a lot of things that I think made the film, just very well told, very well structured. And it was, I, one of the reasons I wanted to work with her, which turned out to be a very good decision, is just having a female filter in such a hyper masculine story.
Mm, mm,
And one of the cinematic challenges was to take this guy that intimidated a lot of people, that, at first glance, oh, it's this skinhead, tattooed, angry, violent punk rocker who may have been, a really bad guy. And then to delve into the story and delve into his childhood and see what he went through, and to make him more human and not just like a cookie cutout of a bad dude, and I gotta say, when I met him and I started to learn more about him, he had this reputation about him as just, you better watch out, you better not piss him off, man. He used to just beat people up and all this stuff. And listening to Harley tell a lot of stories of the crazy days of the late 70s and early 80s, when he was being violent. Sometimes he was getting the shit kicked out of him, and then later he became violent and like robbing, you know, uh, people for money to eat, or like taking burritos from the bodega on the corner, just being a nut job to a certain degree. That's not the right word, but having an insane experience. So to humanize him and have audience empathize with him, but remain true to his real life, and not try to romanticize stuff. But when I first met him, I was myself really taken by all the violence and fighting and this and that, and that took a back seat eventually to the more human story of this kid who grew up in a very adult world of violence and abuse and sex and drugs, and kind of got through it because he was a pretty talented musician. And then later on, martial arts became a big part of his, redeeming himself physically, mentally, emotionally. And of course his relationship with his wife and having kids. I mean, it was a whole story to him getting to the point where he is now, from where he was then.
So for everyone out there listening, November 11, Blu-ray, digital, and video on demand, Wired for Chaos, Harley Flanagan, Wired for Chaos. You can go to wiredforchaos.com. I really highly recommend people, if you're going to watch it any way you can, but especially get that Blu-ray, because I know there's extended interviews, whole stuff, a bunch of stuff on there as well, to really get into the Harley Flanagan story even more. But I got to say, Rex, what you've done with this documentary has been phenomenal. I get a lot of docs my way, especially about, musicians and such, and I think that this story is kind of like quasi Jungle Book story, where Harley Flanagan is raised by the animals in New York City circa 70s and 80s, and what became of him afterwards is a miracle in itself, I think, in a lot of ways. And I think you captured that in that story so phenomenally well. So congratulations to you, and also, if you ever see Harley, also just give him our love and our thanks as well. I think he's the kind of guy who could always appreciate some more love and some more hugs from even from over here in Sydney, Australia. So congrats to you, and congrats to Harley. And yeah, once again, great film, great stuff here.
Yeah, I'll just say, I'm going to see him Sunday night. I'm in North Carolina today, but I'm flying to London tomorrow, and I'll see him and Laura Lee at screenings in Birmingham, Brighton, and Brixton. And the Blu-ray is going to be cool because there's literally 7 extra scenes, about 36 extra minutes.
Yeah.
And my favorite scene of the film didn't make it in because it's Harley and this other guy who's had a crazy life, and they interacted for a while and they played music together, and it just couldn't fit in the 90 minutes. But it's like a 6-7 minute extra scene, and there's more Henry Rollins and there's more Harley. So yeah, have at that Blu-ray. And thank you, Matt, for picking up on this film. Much appreciated.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content.